Hey, thanks for stopping by the channel, guys. So today I'm going to start work on a propane facility, and I'm going to draw inspiration from prototype photos. That's coming up. Okay, guys, so the first thing I did is I went on the internet, got on Google Earth, and I started looking at overhead shots and street views of existing propane facilities. I found four common things that they all had. They had a loading/unloading platform. They all had storage tanks. Some of them had a lot, some of them had just a couple. They had a retail space like an office/shop building, and then they were all fenced in. They were all secured with chain link fence. Those are the four things that I'm going to incorporate into my freelance build. Okay, guys, so here's just a quick mock-up with some buildings that I had to get a feel for the space. I want to get the road bed in and get the track work completed before I go crazy with anything else. So I just want to get a feel for the space. It's gonna have the four major components that we talked about. I got a couple of storage tanks. I've got an office type space. I'm gonna fence the whole facility, and then I will build a loading/unloading platform. Okay, so the first project I decided to take on was building these storage tanks. And I just used some 1/2-inch PVC irrigation piping and fittings. The fittings are the correct diameter that I was looking for. So I just cut little sections of pipe and then glued up the fittings and put the little sections in there. I only glued the female ends to try to eliminate the possibility of glue squeezing out at the seams. I tried to push the fittings real tight so that I had just tiny little gaps to fill, and these worked out pretty good. Okay, so you can see the one on the left, I've done some sanding work. The one on the right, you can see those casting marks in the caps. I wanted to get rid of those, so I used my sanding station for that. Next, you can see that they are all sanded and they're ready to get the some filler work done on the seams. I just used some milliput for that. And then here it is sanded back. So it's ready for primer. And then once that was done, I used a little bit of the tester's putty to do a little bit of finishing work, and then I hit them with a coat of paint. So these are ready to go. Okay guys, so I'm back here at the workbench and I have the building that I'm going to use for my propane facility. It's AmeriGas, but I'm going to use that for my propane facility. And what I've done is I've marked it out. I've got a piece of 1/8-inch cardboard here that I'm going to use for the base. You can see where it's going to set. And then what I did is I scaled out. I'm going to have a 6-foot sidewalk that leads up to the front door, and then I'm going to have a 4-foot wide sidewalk that runs along the side of the building. And then I've marked in the crack prevention lines that they tool into concrete when they place it. So what I'll do for those, I'll cut this out along the marks I've got for the perimeter of the building and the sidewalk, and then I'll use my utility knife to score in these crack prevention lines, and then I'll hit the whole thing with a gray primer. Okay, so I'm going to start with something that's a little bit lighter, and we'll see how this goes. This is the first kind of time I've done this, so we'll see how this goes. And I'm just going to use my finger to kind of rub that chalk in here. Put a little bit more on here. Just want to get kind of a base going here, and then what we'll do is we'll use some of a little bit of the darker to kind of get the grooves filled in. I don't want to go with a black, but I do want to go with something a little bit darker. Is in real life, that's what you see. That they're just a great spot for dirt and junk to get caught into. So that's what I'm going to try to do here, to see if we can't fill these little grooves that we cut in with some of this darker powder. Yeah, that looks better. So, and then we put our building on here. Now it looks like a sidewalk. So next up, I used another piece of 1/8" hardboard and cut out a parking lot area and then glued it to our foundation and sidewalk piece that we just built. And I just painted it black using craft paints. So next up, I marked out the lines for the parking lot using some blue painter's tape. And then I used a piece of sponge and some of the white craft paint, and I just use a dabbing technique. I like using this technique on my asphalt roads and parking lots. It just turns out really well in my opinion. So here's a look at it after I pulled the masking tape off. We'll use some pastels to do some weathering later, but this will wrap this portion of the build up for now. Okay, so next up is building a representation of these loading / unloading type platforms. And I'm just gonna build this out of odds and ends, out of styrene. It's all evergreen styrene, different little pieces I had. I built everything on a small, I think it's 1 inch by 1.5 inch piece of 040 sheet styrene. You can see I just use that as a base and then built everything up off of that. It's a representation of the prototype. You'll see at the end. I think it's a pretty good representation, but it's not completely accurate. The base ultimately will be covered with the gravel, and you won't see that once we get done with the finished facility. So you can see I've got going on the railing here. I've got all the lower bars on. I've got the 2 ends on. So what I'm gonna do for measuring these upper ones, these last couple, is I just set it in here where it's gonna go, and then I take my knife and I kind of bite into the styrene rod, bring it down, give it a quick little score, snap it, and that's it. And then I can use some of the Mr. Cement. I'll put just a dab on top of here and at the ends, and then I'll put a dab on the end here. Take some tweezers, and we'll just try to set this in place. Just like that. That actually fit in there just perfect. I was gonna say you can maneuver it around just a little bit if you need to, but that's fitting pretty good. So I'm gonna leave it, and I'll spin around. We got one more piece here to put across the front, and again, I'll just hold this up here where I need it. Kind of bite into it with the knife, give it a little score, snap it. And then this one I'm going to test fit. If anything, it's a little long, and I can use my emery board. Yeah. I'm going to use the knife here. It's a little bit, it's noticeably long. I can just dry fit this. And right there, perfect. So what I'll do, again, just put a little bit of Mr. Cement on the ends, on the top of that post, and then I'll put a little bit on the ends of the piece we're gonna set. Grab it with my tweezers, making sure that I grab it where it's not gonna mess with that middle post. Once I get it in there, put the cap on this so I don't spill it, and just work to get it to line up where you want it. it doesn't take much at all to get this to bite, and that'll be that. There it is. Push this in down just a hair. There we go. So we'll let that set up, and we got just a few more details to add to it, and then we're ready for paint. Here's a look at our propane facility with the work we got accomplished in this video. You can see our holding tanks, you can see our loading platform, our office slash retail space. That's gonna wrap it up for this video. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you'd like to follow along. In the next episode, we'll take this thing to the next level. Thanks for watching, guys. Happy railroading.